Karen, the Weekend Craftaholic, and today I wanted to do a follow-up to my original YouTube video, which was an intro to the Go Press and Foil. So if you've not seen that, I'll put a link here for you. But this is a little bit more of the advanced version. So the first video I did was getting to know the machine, bit of an unboxing, and just some of the basic things that came in the booklet, which you get with the pack. But today I wanted to show you a few more things that I've been experimenting with. I've got 10 new things that I want to run through. The first 9 are techniques. And then the last thing I want to go with is just to do a bit of a product review for this, which is the Creative Detailer. So this is by Couture Creations, and it's really just a way of, I guess, fixing up some of the mistakes that might happen with the Go Press and Foil. And I'll show you an example of that. So here's a little example of that, and you can see if you don't trim the corners off, you do get a little bit of an effect where it can adhere itself to the card. So we're just gonna have a little finish up of the video and see just how effective this is of removing some of the foil. Okay. The other thing that I've managed to get myself since the first video was this metal shim for the Go Press and Foil. Now I have been trying to look for ideas on why I need this and uses for it. It does refer to the YouTube channel as well, so definitely check that out. But to be honest, the only thing that I found it useful for is embossing, using your embossing folders. So these are the ones with the raised images, of course, that you can use as well to make an impression on your cardstock. You can of course use it in your Big Shot, although I do already have one for that. But like I say, this is the only reason I've found it would be useful to have one of these. If you've got intricate dies as well, it's pretty good for making sure that the impression the foil leaves on the cardstock is a good one. But if you find any other uses for it, please let me know in the comments section below. Alright, so I'm going to go a quick run through of the 10 things that we're going to go through. So first of all is just a normal letterpress. So you can see here I've done this just on some metallic sheet, and I've just used a hot foil itself, but it's not been turned on. So this has just made an impression. You can also use your hot foils dies for stamps. So I've applied some Versamark ink to this, and then I've run that through again on a cold press without turning on the actual machine itself. I also want to run through how we put it on chipboard. You see here I've just applied some silver to that, as well as different types of paper. We've got vellum, we've got acetate, we've got photo paper, and then finally as well just on some ribbon. So the first thing I want to do is talk you through the cold press. You should always use a shim. I've just got 3 pieces of 4x6 here. These were just old scrap papers from old paper pads when you're using that. So the stamp I'm going to use here is the hot foil. You can do this with any of your dies. It doesn't have to be a hot foil die itself. I'm just going to place that in the machine. And because we're not using foil itself, we're just using it to make an impression. And I'm just going to put that over. Of course, I'm going to use my shim as well. And I'm not going to turn the heat on, but I'm going to put this straight into my cutting machine, my Big Shot. So just remember, when you're putting it through your Big Shot or whatever die cut machine you're using, is to just make sure you apply the right amount of pressure. So I am actually going to put together a little card for you to use, a little cheat sheet, so you don't have to remember what we covered today. You can head over to my blog. I'll put a link down below for you, and it'll let you know really how many shims you need for each of these techniques. So you can see here the finished product for me, very similar to the first one obviously, and that I think gives a lovely impression. So that's the first thing, just using it as just a cold press really, as they call it letterpress, but that's the first thing that I would use. The other thing that I wanted to show you, which I used as a stamp, so again this is hot foil, but you could use this with any of your dies that you have, and I've just applied Versamark ink to this. So let me show you. This can get quite messy. I'm just applying it directly on the hot foil like this, being careful trying not to touch it. And of course any ink is fine because we're not applying any heat. So I'm going to put that in now. And then I'm going to get some cardstock to apply over it. Again, I'm going to add some shim, and I'm going to run it through my Sizzix Big Shot. Okay, so just removing the shim, and obviously very carefully removing the cardstock, and you can see you get a really great impression. Now obviously most of the ink has come off there is a little bit of residue. That's 2 techniques we've done. Let's move on to the third one, and this time is using Vellum. So this is one I did earlier, and you can see it gives a really great effect. So I'm going to turn on the Go Press and Fold machine now. This is where we need to start needing some heat. Now whilst we're waiting for that to warm up, we can put our die in the machine, because we obviously need that to warm up as well, and it's always face up with the die and face down with the foil. So always remember it's the opposite, face up for the die and face down for your foil. Now I tend to keep my little offcuts just here, don't waste anything, and this is great as well if you're experimenting or you just need a very small die impression. So I'm going to use this one because that looks pretty nice and long enough for it. And as I say, it's always worthwhile trimming off your corners so you don't get that residue on your cardstock. Okay, so whilst that's warming up, we're gonna, now we've got the die upright, I'm gonna put the foil downward whilst I get my cardstock and then my shim. Now obviously we're not using cardstock, we're gonna use vellum for this one. I've just got a scrap piece of vellum here that I'm gonna use. And it's got little grid lines, I don't know if you can see those or not, to make sure you get your cardstock or whatever it is you're using straight. And apply your shims, and then leave that for a little while. I found you don't need to leave it in any longer or take it off any sooner than you would with normal cardstock. But then again, I do like this kind of faded impression. So if you do want a more solid finish, then leave it in a little bit longer. But to get this kind of effect, I just leave it in for about 30 seconds or so. Okay, so now my green light's on. I've left it in for about 30 seconds or so, and I'm just going to run that through the die cut machine. Okay, so obviously being careful now the machine is hot. Take that off, and also to remove your die. And you can see here, it's easy enough to peel away. And then you can see this is a little bit more solid because I did leave it a little bit longer than last time. You can see it really makes a good impression. Now because I did leave it a bit too long, can you see here? There's a little bit of the silver markings that I'm hoping this little gadget is going to get rid of. So we'll try that out later. Now I've got this nice little acetate, I think I got it from Studio Calico, there's little images on. So we'll use this because you can then see how it actually works when you've got patterned acetate, but it works exactly the same even if you're using plain acetate paper. So I'm going to use this Hello die because I just want a bigger image on this sheet. So that's first off into the machine and giving it a little while to warm up. And then I'm going to put my acetate sheet on. And then my shim. Okay, now that's been through my machine. Just remove the shim. And you can see here, hopefully, cardstock, so you can see that. I could probably have left that in a little bit longer to get more of an outline. It didn't do such a good effect. So I'll make sure I write that on my instructions for you on my little checklist, because this is quite thick vellum. Okay, so this time I want to show you on a photograph. So this is on matte print, but it works the same for glossy. I've tried both of them. And I've got my hot foil just nicely heating up in the machine. Now placement is everything because I want the foil to be here. So I need to make sure I'm putting that in the right place. And this is why I have some little washi tape stickers here, just to remind me of where the centres are, and also if I was to do a 4x6 and 6x4 photograph here of these markings. But I know I want it here, which is fine. Sorry, I've got my die face up. I'm now going to have my foil face down before putting the foil down. And then apply your shim. Now you do need to leave it a little bit longer because it's photo paper, it's quite thick. I'm just going to remove my shim, and there's my photograph. So the next thing I want to do is ribbon. So you've probably seen this on YouTube before. I missed it off in my previous video, so I'm going to do one now, nice and quick, just to show you how easy it is. Cover the die, and then the ribbon face down if you've got a preference to which side. Oops, forget the shims. Removing the shims and then being careful. And even though this is quite textured ribbon, you see it makes a really good impression on that. So this is one I did earlier, the first one I did actually just to try it on a small piece, but I want to do it on a bigger piece this time. So I've got some of these hashtag chipboard pieces that I want to do. Now the process is different than you would, we're not going to do, for example, hot foil and so on in the same order. We're going to place that face down. So because this is a word, obviously I've got it reversed at the moment, and we need to leave that so the chipboard heats up a little bit. So we need that to get warm, so we'll leave it a minute or so just to make sure it's nice and warm. So completely different process than what you've seen before. Once we've left that facing down for about a minute or so, we are then going to remove it and put a piece of foil directly onto this metal plate instead. So let me get a different colour foil for this. Okay, so I think that's been about a minute. So now we're going to lift this up. I'm going to put the foil directly face down onto that, and I am going to use my little tweezers to pick that up, and then to just move it on top. Oops. And then we're going to place it into the cutting machine. So obviously, depending on the width of your chipboard piece, you need to make sure that you're not going to cause any damage to your cutting machine. So if you remember, it was face down for the chipboard piece, face down for the foil, and then placing the chipboard piece on, and then you just put that in your cutting machine. And look at that. That is my new favourite way of using the Go Press and foil. The other technique I wanted to show you was to do it on washi tape. Oops, washi tape. Do that again with a thicker piece of washi. Holding that down until I can get my shim in place to hold it in place. We don't need to leave this too long. And then this is my washi tape adhered to my shim. Just taking the foil off. And then removing my washi, and you can see it sticks quite nice. I obviously missed a little bit here. Now the other thing you can do is obviously use then just as an impression on your washi. So this is a piece of nice gold washi that I've got. So again, it's just a bit like making an impress on that for you. Okay, so the next one I want to do is actually using the metal shim that I mentioned at the start of the video. So I've just got that heating up nicely in the Go Press and Fold machine, and I'm going to use one of my embossing folders. I'm not sure where I got this from. I think it was a freebie out of a magazine, but we're going to actually use the side with the raised effects, so not the one with the impress, the more the raised side. So just bear that in mind as well. So we've got the metal shim, and what we need to do also is just to warm this up as well. So we're going to put it into the machine with the raised side facing upwards, and because it is plastic, we do want that to warm up as well, because that is going to give us our impression with the foil. So whilst that's doing that, also getting my piece of foil ready, and my cardstock that I'm going to use. And just like we did before, the foil will be shiny side down, so face down, and then the cardstock, and then the shim. So your cardstock would also be face down if you're using a patterned cardstock or you've got a particular side you want to use. Let's have a little feel. Yep, that feels okay. And then a few shims. And we're going to leave that a little bit longer just because it is a large area that we want to impress. Want to make sure it's an intricate design. I'll show you one that went wrong, which I've done lots of trial and error with these. This is the same one that I use, and you could see, even though it's all been in the same time and it's gone through the cutting machine at the same pressure, some areas of it are not quite as well defined as others. So it is worthwhile leaving it in, but you don't want to leave it too long. Show you again what happens if you leave something too long. You get this kind of effect where you get all of it applied on that. So it's a fine balance of timing with some of these. Okay, so we've just had that through the machine, and you see here, it looks like a pretty good impression. You could never tell until you reveal it, but I'm pretty happy with that. That's a good result. Looks pretty good, and I would encourage you to also make use of the leftover as well that you get with this, whether you want to use the back side, the silver side, or this. It makes perfect backgrounds to cards as well, so I always keep these and reuse them. And that's the last show and tell with the machine itself. Now I'm going to move on to the new little gadget that I got from the Crafter's Companion, and we're going to have a look just how good the detailer is as well for fixing up any messes or errors that you get with your hot foiling. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is try this creative detailer and see if it will remove some of these speckles that are left. Now this cost me $12 Australian dollars, and you see it comes with lots of little bits, lots of supplies. I'm sure will last a long time. And there are a few instructions on the back about installing batteries. Rotate the battery cover, and then I'll just go and pop and get 2 AA batteries. 2 AA batteries. But there is no way 2 AA batteries are going to fit in that. So I've just gone to get a couple of AAAs. So that must be just a little bit of a misprint on the packaging. I just hope I'm putting them in the right way. And that instruction's right. And then press the button at the tip to start rotating. There we go, and that's working really well. Rotate the detailer back and forth as required. Careful not to maintain a single position for extended period. So I will zoom in on this. And that works really well. It's just like an erasable pen. Let me try it on one that might be a little bit easier to see. Try it on the chipboard maybe. You see it's taking that hot foil straight off. Do it on the ribbon. Yep, it's even doing it on the ribbon. So that's a really good price point. It's like $12–14 in Australia. So I would definitely recommend getting one of these. You've got some finer tips as well with some of these positioning tools if you do want the finer one. It's a little bit more of a difficult, intricate design. I definitely recommend getting one of these for the price. It's basically just an electric eraser, but it works so well.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you've got any comments about this video, please leave them below. I'd love to see them. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. That way YouTube knows to recommend similar ones for you. And finally, if you'd like to see more from me, and I hope so, please subscribe by clicking the link below. I post new content every weekend.